Okay, here we are today having another Talks with Talk. Today's at the start of every one of these videos, I rib on the name, which is so bad. You shouldn't rib on your own name, should you? Anyway, and we're here with Emily Parry. She's our creative director. Could you, just to kick us off, to give people an understanding of your work history and the skill set you've got, can you just give us a quick 30-second, 1 minute, 2 minute summary of your work history? So what you've done in your career so far and where it's got you, how you sort of stepped towards what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I pretty much grew up as a complete generic creative. Love doing craft and love to kind of just do hands-on kind of work. Never really pictured myself as an office worker. So I was like, okay, I want to find some way of being creative and not have to work, be able to enjoy my passion. And so I ended up doing a bit of a TAFE course in design fundamentals in school. And then moved on and did a course at Billy Blue Design College. So I did a Bachelor of Communications in Design. And that was kind of where everything started for me. So I used to travel to Sydney pretty much every day for 3 years. And that's how I kind of did my course. It was all, based in Sydney. And then I got a job straight out of that in a design studio, which actually did packaging. So I learned kind of a little bit more hands-on work, and then obviously all the fundamentals of design. Then moved to a different agency and moved more into print and that side of things. And then finally landed a job on the Central Coast, which was amazing. And kind of just, grew out my skills through there, and started at Talk about 2.5 years ago, and really delved into the digital side of things, which I love more than anything. I think it's incredible to be able to kind of be super hands-on, but in an approach where you can just make things happen straight away, and be firing completely on all cylinders in creative. It's an amazing skill to have, and I just, absolutely love doing it. And so, I pretty much lead the creative team. So it is not only design, but also video and social and, all elements of design really, and creative.
Cool, awesome. And just before we get into the nitty-gritty of what we want to talk about today, one thing that popped into my mind, which I know a lot of people like to get information on, what is your take, because you went to Billy Blue and everyone studies design in different ways. What is your take on creative, or I guess more specifically design study in general? Is there an effective path to take even? What is the best way to go about starting, the cliche, how do I kickstart a career in design?
I think everyone is different. I've worked with so many different people and had different people a part of my team that have taken many different paths. At the end of the day, if you're a super hyper creative, that's actually what matters. And it's a case of trying to build out that skill in whatever way suits you. And everyone's answer to that is different. But I personally think if you learn better in a TAFE scenario and that suits you, then you can still get from A to B. It might just be slower or faster or different ways of doing it. But at the end of the day, being a creative, you're learning every single day. So it's not just the 3 years that you spend in a college. I found Billy Blue amazing because it kind of taught me a lot of those life skills of dealing with stress and creative at the same time. Because that is very challenging in itself, because they're two completely different things. So it's more down that line of I guess personal to me, what suits you personally and what you need to learn in order to get out into the industry.
And do you feel study is the best way to equip yourself for a creative career in a business, i.e. what I sort of say, or like what I've learnt from you and from our creative team a lot is, there are not everyone is hyper creative, but those that are hyper creative, they're creative, but to be creative in a commercial sense, so driving to an improvement in a conversion rate or working to a deadline or whatever, that's much, much harder to do. And do you think study helps you to get ready for that?
Yeah, definitely. I think like study it's a way to train your brain to start to see those elements and how they can kind of come into reality. Mm-hmm. Every creative that's born a creative, they can imagine things and they can see the direction that they want to take. But I think places like uni and TAFE and any kind of course teach you the realities of working with a client, and that it's not your personal feeling, but it's more about everyone else's experience to what they feel about your designs or creative. Because I think at the end of the day, like sometimes when you first come into the industry, it is like what you like and dislike, and that is how you can kind of go down that avenue. But going into TAFE or college or uni, it does really lean you to start to think completely different about how does somebody else feel or experience my design to make a difference in their life or make conversion better or something like that. So it does actually train you into the realities of why you do what you do, not just to make it look good.
Yeah.
Because it's not just visual, like it's a lot more about how can you talk to the correct people. Because as a junior, like you don't know about different types of people and different types of industries and things like that. So that is kind of all the things that you start to learn, especially about the research of design, which is really important. I mean, you can make something look good, but if you don't have the research to back it up, then like you can't. So it kind of teaches you to look into those things and start to understand it.
Cool. That's awesome. Oh, sorry. Massive tangent. Just wasted so much of your valuable time. So one of the things creative, I find it really interesting because, business. So we're talking to like marketers and business owners with these videos, and there's so many things that is outside of the control of a business owner or a marketer when they're trying to generate growth online. They don't control Facebook. They don't control Google. They can influence their Google ranking to a degree. One of the few things, other than budget, which at the moment everyone's budgets are strained, one of the few things they control is the creative and the messaging. So it's sort of one of the last, it's the promised land of return on investment, ROI, that one of the last few frontiers of ways that clients can generate additional growth is through, or improvement in results is through creative. And that's often the angle I take when I think about creative, is like a commercial angle. But when you're thinking about it more from obviously commercial, but also from a creative perspective, do you see that consistency of a brand or of a message or what have you, do you see that driving commercial improvement for a business?
Yeah, definitely. I actually think that consistency makes it so much easier for any brand or any company, because not only is that first creative already answered, but you can actually start to be creative on top of that. So it almost like, I kind of think of consistency as like the base structure. So you need that base in order to be adding onto it from there. So like, say you add an offer onto your base structure, then that's an extra value add. Things like that.
Okay.
So that's where you can start to save money, because save in actual industry is because you've already set that base structure of design or creative. Now you can just change your messaging out and things like that. So it's not that you have to revamp every single time you do something, but just add on to it and change little things to better an experience from a user's point of view.
Okay, so you're saying that the approach that businesses should take when they're thinking about their creative work in marketing is to establish a baseline of a brand and key and practically, like from an execution perspective, that might be key assets, brand guidelines, you know, ad creatives, like, you know, templates for different types of ads and things like that. Yeah. And then on an ongoing basis, it's just about swapping out offers and messaging and things.
Yeah, like, I mean, yes, of course, you can reinvent the wheel every now and again, and that is also very important. But if you're trying to churn through different things and put things up fast in order to A/B test or get bigger conversions or things like that, it is really important to have that consistent base structure in your designs, because it actually means that you may be able to swap out between 3 different elements to create different ads or different designs every single time, but it doesn't take you as long because you've already created the assets that you need. So it does actually, it starts to kind of take that thinking work out of that initial thought process.
Yeah.
So you can just take an original piece of design or creative and add on to it or take pieces away. And that consistency is actually what every user is looking for, because they then know what to expect from you. So they can read your messaging. They're not trying to read the entirety of the creative.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense. And so we're talking sort of return on investments, baseline creative to bolt in offers and different messaging to generate ROI. So that's very campaign focused. So in the sales funnel, that's trying to drive more users in the top. So the other terms we talk about, CRO and UX, which I know are 2 different things. I sometimes feel like they blend a bit, but can you just explain UX for those that don't know what it is? Can you just explain what it is?
Yeah. So UX is pretty much a design term or a creative term that we use for user experience. User experience is super important from not only visual creative, but it's actually the end-to-end experience of a user or a person that walks into a store. So you want hyper, I guess, control over the consistency of that. So you want somebody to go onto a website and see your design there, and then they want to feel the exact same experience when they walk into the store and speak to one of your employees. So UX is essentially that entire experience that you're trying to portray. So it's your brand experience, really. So it's that feeling that users will get when they look at your website, or maybe a package is delivered to their door, and that messaging and that thing, that's what that experience is. So it's not necessarily something that's visual, but it's something that you feel. So generally, to create that, you do a lot of research into your target audience and the type of people that they are, so that you know how they may feel or experience the design that you're putting in front of them. And so, that's why you need to have UX and consistency to kind of pull all of that together. And they are decisions that you kind of make like at the very start, because say for a hotel or something like that, that the end experience is for them to come in and actually feel, to stay over the night and feel the location and things like that. So all of that should be embedded in every creative that you do.
Yeah. Okay. And it's interesting, the buzzword UX design or becoming a UX designer, and it's all about like user experience within an app product or a web product. And, I was signing up to this app actually the other night, and it stepped me through all these different steps, but it was like super addictive. And I was like, man, that's good UX. So yes, it's inside an app or a website, but what you're saying is it's really more than that. It's about how the user experiences a brand in any way, shape or form. So UX is like a new term for a really old thing.
Yeah, that's it. And like, if they come onto your website or use an app and they can't find what they're looking for in order to get the end product or offering that you're trying to sell, then that's bad UX straight from there as well. So it's like you're trying to embed that entire process. So the end thing is you want them to trust you. So in order to have good UX, you also need good UI, which is good user interface. So that's that is to do with the design side of things. So that's the visual, and the UX is the experience side.
Yep.
So you need to have good functionality. I guess you don't want them to trip over themselves, essentially. You always want them to be able to go back a page or go forward or skip things or get exactly where they need to do. So that's through, I guess, a website or an app. That's where you'd need to have like links and things to kind of keep them moving through the website. Because again, you don't want them to feel trapped, or like you want them to go down exactly that avenue, because every user is different. So that's where you start to do your experience kind of research and discover that, okay, we've got 2 buckets of people that we're talking to, and some people might want to do it this way and others might want to do it this way. So that's kind of where you really need that research in order to have the good UX to make it kind of consistent all the way through.
Yeah, okay. And how do you see UX sort of bleeding into or out of CRO? Because I like to talk about, if you've got the funnel, and at the top of the funnel, you've got marketing to drive users into the funnel. And when we talk creatively, how that plays into that is consistent branding, swapping out messaging. And then at the bottom, we're trying to convert a user on a website or to an email list or whatever you're trying to do. There's such a massive opportunity in that squeeze at the bottom of the funnel to convert. You might only have 1 in 100 users converting, but if you double your conversion rate, you're doubling the amount of people that you're converting without having to spend more money at the top. So it's a huge opportunity from a business perspective. Do you see design playing much of a role in CRO? Yeah,
definitely. I see CRO as, again, like that. You have to have a good experience there. So CRO is, you could do optimization on your website or something like that in order to make it easier for them to convert. So the design side of things is where if they can't find the button, they can't convert. I guess that's kind of the easiest way to kind of put it. So through that, we might end up putting additional buttons and additional things on the page in order for the user to kind of move around and get to that end funnel. So it does play a huge part, and it, again, like it's through different changes of color and using parts of your brand that make that kind of stand out more. So they might be in, I guess, a considering kind of phase where they're starting to look around a little bit more and be a little bit more curious through the way that they're exploring a website or something like that. That means that they're going to stay on the website longer. So again, your results are better. And then at the end of the day, if your design is really good and you've got banners and buttons kind of pushing them through the website, it means that you can kind of push them down the funnel of where they want to go. Yeah. So I personally think it is really important for that, because if you can't find it, you can't convert.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, I 100%, I agree. And if you don't want to take too much of your time, so we might wrap it up there, but just wrapping it up, do you have anything that a business owner or a general manager or a marketing manager or marketing coordinator or something that is trying to sort of wrap their heads around how to get useful design flowing for their business and make it applicable from a marketing perspective? Do you have any parting words of wisdom or any advice or any tips, any tricks that they should keep in mind?
Yeah, I guess like for me personally, it's you try to do, you almost want to say one thing at a time. So you could do 2 different types of creative, but the biggest learning point would be the user's only going to pull one piece of information out of it. So if you have 2 types of messages that you're trying to send, set up 2 different types of landing pages, or it could be an ad set or something like that. If you want to send 2 different messages, keep them separate. The more that you try to say at once, people will just glaze over it. So you want to keep it really simple. Good design is, it is so simplistic that people think that they could create it really fast. That's when it's good. So you just want to keep it as simple as possible.
Okay, awesome. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. The KISS principle. Fair enough. Cool. All right. Thank you, Em. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.